Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, affordable housing, mental illness, and wildfire preparedness. How San Diego County leaders plan to address these issues. County Supervisor Diane Jacob lays out her plans for San Diego.
Strep throat's a very common childhood infection, and recurrent tonsillitis or recurrent strep throat is been a sort of a long-standing medical mystery. So why do some kids keep getting these infections?
Plus, it sickens thousands of people each year, mostly children. What local researchers say about a possible vaccine for strep throat.
Our Series A funding was $100 million. It's the largest Series A funding in the co-working industry, and it's providing our ability to grow rapidly.
A San Diego-based company announces a 2 million square feet expansion plan just 3 years after launching. What the CEO says about San Diego's ability to attract entrepreneurs. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Affordable housing, protection from wildfires, and helping people with mental illness were all part of today's State of the County address. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman gives us a roundup of some of the priorities for the coming year.
Supervisor Chair Diane Jacob gave her 7th State of the County address since joining the Board of Supervisors back in 1993. She hit on a number of topics. Starting with housing, Jacob says she wants the county to add $25 million to help build permanent, affordable housing. She also wants to look into creating incentives for building granny flats. Protection against wildfires was also mentioned as a priority. Jacob wants to offer more incentives for homeowners in high-risk fire areas to help install protective barriers. She's also pushing for more controlled burns, which in the past CAL FIRE has said they want to do more of. Jacob also announced she and Supervisor Nathan Fletcher would bring the idea of community choice energy to the board. This is where local government would control energy buying and rates as opposed to SDG&E. Jacob says in San Diego, ratepayers have some of the highest utility rates in the nation, and county government already buys the bulk of its electricity from providers other than SDG&E.
If the county can shop for energy, why not the rest of us? Why not ratepayers, school districts, and others? It's simple. It allows communities to band together to buy and sell electricity and opens the door to competition.
Jacob also wants a coordinated system to address mental health issues, which she says many people who are homeless suffer from. She says already the county spends $650 million a year on behavioral health services, but it doesn't mean the county's doing enough or doing it right. Jacob also pushed the idea of creating crisis stabilization centers where law enforcement can take people for detox and receive treatment. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Newly elected San Diego City Councilwoman Monica Montgomery takes on police reform. She was elected last year on a platform of increasing police accountability and transparency. Montgomery will have considerable power to shape the conversation at City Hall as chairwoman of the council's Public Safety Committee. Before her first committee meeting today, she told reporters many of her southeastern San Diego constituents wish police were just more courteous.
We can go a long way with when we have those contacts to treat folks the same way consistently. That will go a long way in what we're trying to do.
In the coming year, Montgomery wants to use the Public Safety Committee to review use of force policies and beef up civilian oversight of investigations into officer misconduct. The civil case in the death of Rebecca Zahau is over after a settlement is reached out of court. In 2011, 32-year-old Zahau was found dead, bound, gagged, and hanging from a balcony from the Spreckles mansion in Coronado. Sheriff Gore ruled the death a suicide, but last year a civil court found Adam Shacknai liable for her death. He was ordered to pay $5 million in damages to her family. Shacknai filed an appeal for a retrial, but a settlement was reached with the family instead. Although the case was dismissed, the judge says the verdict remains. Shacknai says he's glad this case is coming to a close.
It's been a rough ride. A lot of unexpected things when you get sued like this.
The amount of the settlement has not been disclosed. Every year, thousands of children in the U.S. are infected with strep throat, but some children get the bacterial infection over and over. KPBS health reporter Susan Murphy talked to two San Diego researchers who've discovered why. Now their findings may open the door to a vaccine.
Make it go haywire.
For nearly 7 years, Shane Crotty, a professor with the Vaccine Discovery Division at the La Jolla Institute of Immunology, has been studying strep throat. The painful infection in the back of the mouth causes white or red spots along with a fever. It's treated with antibiotics.
And recurrent tonsillitis or recurrent strep throat is been a sort of a long-standing medical mystery. So why do some kids keep getting these infections?
It's a question Crotty and his team can now answer. He says many people develop a protective immunity to the strep bacteria after an infection, but not everybody shares that same protective antibody response. He says there's also a genetic component. Recurrent strep throat likely runs in the family.
The key finding here is that we've got evidence that recurrent tonsillitis or recurrent strep throat is a genetic susceptibility disease, and it's tied to the bacteria actually targeting the immune system.
Susceptible children often have their tonsils removed after about a dozen cases to help prevent further infections. The lymph node-like structures on each side of the back of the throat are a breeding ground for strep bacteria. They played a valuable role in the research.
So we developed a test to be able to measure strep-specific responses within the tonsil.
Jennifer Dan is an infectious disease physician and clinical associate with the Institute. She has studied tonsil samples of hundreds of children in San Diego. She says the bacteria that causes strep throat can lead to serious complications if it's not treated, including rheumatic heart disease.
Rheumatic heart disease is a big problem in third world countries. It's one of the primary causes of early heart failure in young adults. So it's something that the World Health Organization is trying to eliminate.
Dan and Crotty say their study could help make eliminating strep throat and rheumatic heart disease possible.
The way the bacteria are targeting the immune system provides an idea for a vaccine where you can block that activity of the bacteria. And so if you can block that activity with a vaccine, it might actually be able to stop strep throat in general.
Their study, released today, is published in the Science Translational Medicine Journal. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
Co-working spaces are shared places designed to encourage innovation. Their numbers have ballooned in recent years. CommonGrounds Workspace is growing faster than most in the industry. I spoke to the CEO, Jacob Bates. He says workplace as a service is the future.
We're standing inside of CommonGrounds. This is what we define as our communal area.
Jacob Bates is the CEO of CommonGrounds. Since launching in 2016, this Carlsbad location has tripled in size. The shared workspace company has locations in San Jose, Long Beach, and Denver.
So over here we have a little bit of an open desk environment where members may rent a desk and come in and use it as they need to.
Bates calls it a human-centric design.
What you're seeing over here on the left are our conference rooms, which are booked through our proprietary CG Plus app.
CommonGrounds is also part of the growing share economy. Think Uber, Lyft, and dockless bikes and scooters. It's workplace on demand, with all the modern amenities, Bates says, at a fraction of what a traditional office space would cost.
So when you take into consideration your rent, your operational cost, your capital to improve the space, your capital to buy furniture and fixtures, your capital for your IT, your lights, your capital to have a reception, to have different mail services. When you look at the cost for all of that and compare it to a shared workspace where you're getting all of that on demand and inclusive, the savings is actually significant.
Forbes estimates by 2020 there will be more than 26,000 co-working spaces in the U.S. CommonGrounds plans to be part of that growth. Recently, the company raised more than $100 million from investors. And there's plans to open 8 new locations within the next 2 years, including one in downtown San Diego.
We're dealing with a spectrum of all different kinds of companies. Companies that have just started with a couple of people that are entrepreneurial and they're looking to, network and collaborate and share an environment, to, a Fortune 1500 company who has a very large global presence, but is looking at this type of environment as a way to attract and retain talent, as a way of removing some of their proprietary leases off their balance sheet and using it as a tool for growth, strategic growth.
Shared workspaces are lauded for being cost-saving, flexible environments that encourage innovation. On the day we toured, members had an opportunity to present and get feedback on their business pitches.
We are looking for $100,000 for a 20% stake in the company.
Bates served as a shark, playing the role of a would-be investor.
I think that there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirit in San Diego, and we need to capture that and probably embrace it more than we have in the past.
CommonGrounds also supports the innovation economy, a phrase often used to describe tech companies. The most recent Connect report finds it makes up more than $55 billion of San Diego's economy. Bates says CommonGrounds can help tech companies with one of their biggest challenges, the demand for skilled workers. A recent Harvard business study found tech-savvy millennials favor co-working environments. Community and work-life balance were some of the reasons cited.
We also love San Diego from a work-life aspect. I think it provides an environment for people to really enjoy themselves, have an enjoyable work life. And I think it's an attractive environment in the war for talent.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, what the State of the Union reveals about the divergent political priorities of both parties. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
President Trump delivers his second State of the Union address, 1 week delayed due to the government shutdown and disputes over funding for a border wall. In response, President Trump focused his speech on bipartisan unity.
As we begin a new Congress, I stand here ready to work with you to achieve historic breakthroughs for all Americans.
After a month-long government shutdown and weeks of a strained relationship with Congress, President Donald Trump delivers the State of the Union address, calling for unity across party lines.
Millions of our fellow citizens are watching us now gathered in this great chamber, hoping that we will govern not as two parties, but as one nation.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi joined the crowd in a standing ovation when he spoke of putting people above politics.
We must reject the politics of revenge, resistance, and retribution, and embrace the boundless potential of cooperation, compromise, and the common good.
However, the president continued putting pressure on Congress to fund one of his most controversial campaign promises, the southern border wall.
Congress has 10 days left to pass a bill that will fund our government, protect our homeland, and secure our very dangerous southern border. Now is the time for Congress to show the world that America is committed to ending illegal immigration and putting the ruthless coyotes, cartels, drug dealers, and human traffickers out of business. San Diego used to have the most illegal border crossings in our country. In response, a strong security wall was put in place. This powerful barrier almost completely ended illegal crossings.
Whether this statement is accurate remains a debate. According to a 2017 report by the Government Accountability Office, it's correct. The number of border arrests here in San Diego dropped dramatically after a barrier was built. But there isn't enough evidence to show the barrier as the primary cause. While much of the speech focused on Capitol Hill unity, the president also touted success on topics close to home, such as unemployment rates.
African American, Hispanic American, and Asian American unemployment have all reached their lowest levels ever recorded.
Wage increases.
Wages are rising at the fastest pace in decades, and growing for blue-collar workers, who I promised to fight for.
And the economy.
In just over 2 years since the election, we have launched an unprecedented economic boom, a boom that has rarely been seen before. There's been nothing like it. We have created 5.3 million new jobs and, importantly, added 600,000 new manufacturing jobs, something which almost everyone said was impossible to do. But the fact is, we are just getting started.
The address received mixed reviews. While the room seemed positive, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called the president's address nothing more than rhetoric, parallel to his 2016 presidential campaign.
Last night, President Trump had the opportunity to bring our parties together and offer the Congress and the country a new vision for the next 2 years of divided government. President Trump squandered the opportunity with a forgettable and at oftentimes incoherent speech. At times he called for unity without specifics. At other times he served up divisive campaign rhetoric that he has used so frequently in the past. Let us hope and pray that the country can heal. But President Trump did nothing to move that forward.
San Diego Congressman Scott Peters was at the State of the Union address and shared his thoughts on President Trump's comments about the San Diego border.
Well, I like that he started out with appeal to bipartisanship. I think that's what we need. There's a lot of things we can work together on. I didn't like what he said about San Diego and border security. I think he's manufacturing a crisis that doesn't exist. San Diego sees the border as an opportunity, not as a threat. And we know that apprehensions are at their lowest level since 1971, and that the people who are coming across now aren't dangerous criminals, but mostly families. And I think we should deal with them. We should deal with what's really happening, not with what he's making up to score political points. So our border is worth billions of dollars in economic activity to both sides, to both Mexico and the United States. It's an important part of our economy. It's an important part of our culture. Tens of thousands of jobs depend on it. And what we really need to do is make sure that we screen the cargo that's coming through the ports of entry. We know that's where all the hard drugs are coming from. And that's where we need support. We need support for tunnel detection. We need radar. We need drones. We need a lot of things to make sure we're patrolling the border, but not a wall. We've built enough wall. What was authorized in 2006 has been built. If there's more that needs to be built, there ought to be evidence to support that, and the president did not offer that tonight.
Peters added he hopes President Trump was being sincere when he called for unity and hopes the Congress can come to an agreement before another government shutdown in 10 days. The DMV is once again under investigation by state officials. This comes after multiple lawsuits. The Secretary of State's office has agreed to look into whether the DMV voter registration errors changed the outcome of state and local elections. In December, the DMV revealed it failed to transmit voter registration information for 589 people who registered through the Motor Voter Program ahead of the November election. The DMV could not confirm whether any of the voters were turned away on Election Day.
There's too much information, lawsuits, and concerns that are being raised to simply let this go along on autopilot. There really needs to be a thorough, a serious, deep look at this right now, because who knows what we'll discover. Maybe we'll discover it's worse, maybe we won't, but we don't know that truth now, and the sooner we get to it, the sooner this will be settled before the 2020 election.
State election officials have 60 days to complete their investigation, but some lawmakers say they're the wrong people for the job. The storm has moved out and clear skies are back in sunny San Diego, but not for long. Meteorologist Ajia Swad has our full weather forecast.
After a wet forecast yesterday, we are finally going to see some dry days ahead before we get another chance of some precipitation. But as we recap here, 5-day precipitation totals across San Diego County and towards the mountains, well, nearing 6 inches, or as you head into Mount Woodson, 4.34 inches were reported, and at San Diego International Airport, 1.92 inches of rain. So that is a lot of precipitation, but from the last 6 hours on our radar, not a whole bunch here across Southern California. And that's going to continue as we head into tonight as well as into your Friday. It's in fact clear forecast for tonight, chilly with a low of 42 as we move into your regional forecast, 36 in Borrego Springs, 24 in Mount Laguna, also clear, cold, 33 in towards Oceanside. We'll need those jackets tonight. And if you have any pets outdoors or any vegetation, we are going to be looking at a frost advisory kicking off 10 p.m. Wednesday night until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, and that includes Riverside as well as Fallbrook. So once again, something to keep in mind are your animals and your vegetation. Going to have to bring them indoors. Mostly dry, once again, as we head into your Thursday, high pressure back into the basin. Chilly conditions across much of the region, and then we'll slowly start to warm up each day here. 62 in Oceanside for Thursday, 61 in San Diego, and topping off in the lower 60s in Borrego Springs. Out towards Mount Laguna, always a bit chillier with a high of 40, but dry. Still rain-free into your Friday. So if you have any outdoor plans, looking like the next several days will be dry. But now into Friday night and Saturday, we'll be watching a piece of energy drop down from the northwest. That's going to bring in some rain potential once again for Friday night into your Saturday. Really going to be on the light side, and the coast has the best chance for seeing that moisture. Mostly sunny on Friday, Saturday, a morning shower. Then we see some showers return for your Sunday evening and night. At the coast, inland, we'll be looking at our temperatures remaining in the 60s for your highs and in the 40s out towards the mountains. Chilly conditions going to be felt, or cool conditions in towards the deserts, topping off in the upper 60s for your highs. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Dajia Swad. Back to you.
A new book covers the stories of the Chinese who fled during the Communist Revolution of 1949. The Last Boat Out of Shanghai examines this exodus out of China. KQED Newsroom's Thuy Vu chats with author Helen Zia about the parallels she sees with today's refugees.
And it's good to have you here, Helen.
Hi, thanks for having me here, Thuy.
Well, your book is framed around 4 exiles whose stories represent the experience of those who fled Mao's communist revolution. Can you take us back to 1949? What was the scene like when the People's Liberation Army marched into Shanghai?
Well, this is a generation that lived through starting World War II, the occupation by Japan. It had been a very brutal time, the collapse of the old regime. And so this was a society in chaos, and had been for a very long time. And so when it was very clear that the Red Army of Chairman Mao was going to be marching into Shanghai, really all hell broke loose. And it had been building for some time because it was clear that, the society was going to collapse.
And Shanghai was viewed as a capitalist place. A lot of the more elite Chinese lived in Shanghai, and they all feared persecution.
Many did. It was a city like New York City. It was one of the top 5 cities in population in the whole world, and it was China's largest and most cosmopolitan.
The Pearl of the Orient.
Right. Yeah. So at the time that the Red Army was approaching, people were so afraid that they were holding on to the sides of trains and climbing on the roofs, going, packed like sardines, or on boats that were so heavy they were sinking. And panic had broken loose. And that's why I called it the last boat out of Shanghai, because everybody who fled thought that they were on the very last boat, the very last train or last plane.
And your book is coming out at a time when we're hearing a lot about the exodus of refugees from different parts of the world. What are the similarities that you see between what you've written about and what we're hearing and seeing today?
Oh, the similarities, the parallels, and the lessons to learn are huge. I mean, and that's the point of telling these stories and learning from history. I mean, first of all, one of the things that gets said about refugees of any time is that they are pouring into our borders, that it's just, they've decided on a lark to come here, like the thousands of refugees who walked 1,000 miles. But in fact, the refugees out of Shanghai, they spent years debating, should I leave? Should I stay? would it be, how would we live? But how can we stay? What if we die leaving? What if we die staying? I mean, this was a daily debate in Shanghai for so many families every day. And I think that's what these refugees and migrants today, every one of them, before they decide to get on a rubber raft, you know, to leave Africa or to march a 1,000 miles, that's what they decide.
And what happens after they arrive in their new country? Because you make the point that the refugees are often the kinds of people you want in a country.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the big lies that's being said about these migrants and refugees that are trying to get in here. These are people who are risking everything for the possibility of living free, or that their children can live free and survive childhood. And so these are the kind of people who were, many were pillars of their communities, and that's why they are most at risk staying where they are. And so these are the kind of people who will be the most contributing people to our society, and we should welcome them.
Governor Gavin Newsom made good today on losing a friendly Super Bowl bet with Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker. The LA Rams lost to the New England Patriots Sunday. Since Newsom bet on the Rams, he had to wear the winning team's jersey while serving food at a homeless shelter in Sacramento. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.